ballistic missile testing to pave the path for talks with the U.S. The announcement drawing skepticism from some foreign policy analysts.
Look, we've talked to North Korea on and off, directly and indirectly, for 25 years. We have failed, obviously, to stop the program. There's no reason to think that with them a few yards away from the finish line in year 26, they're suddenly going to get serious. Indeed, I come to the opposite conclusion.
Joining us now, Peter Brookes, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's also the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense under President George W. Bush. And in that role, you were responsible for working on security plans for countries like South Korea and Japan, correct?
And North Korea, yes. All of Asia at that time.
So you know a great deal about this. Should we be skeptical about the North's sudden willingness to talk?
Absolutely. I'm really interested, John, as to what came up, this epiphany came about that North Korea changed its stance significantly. But that said, I think we should, take advantage of the diplomatic opportunities that are before us. But the devil is in the details because we have to see how they define things. What do they mean by denuclearization? So there's a lot of diplomatic work that needs to be done before we would see a senior American representative sit down with the North Koreans.
Is it possible this is just a stalling tactic?
That certainly is possible, and that's what our intelligence community is going to have to do. And our military, they're going to have to look at things. And I think for that reason, we need to continue our current policies of economic pressure and military deterrence. I don't think we should give anything away in terms of goodwill, a gesture of goodwill at this point. We want to, of course, hear from our South Korean allies who will be traveling to the United States and find out what really happened behind those closed doors. They haven't told us everything. So you could say you could be cautiously optimistic, I think, at best, but, and skeptical at worst.
When North Korea joined South Korea to field a team in the recent Olympic Games, a lot of people said, oh, this is part of their ploy, part of their strategy to put pressure on the U.S. and freeze the U.S. out of any Korean dialogue. Do you see that still underway here? All of a sudden, now they're offering to talk to the U.S.
Right. That's why we need to know a lot more. I think many of us were skeptical of their charm offensive at the Olympics. I think we should be skeptical of their charm offensive now, but we shouldn't be afraid to move forward with this. I mean, like I said, Kim Jong-un could have had an epiphany and decided to change. I mean, before this, John, they were always talking about we're never going to give up our nukes. We're never going to give up our nukes. But that was their negotiating strategy at that point. We have to see what they're asking for. We don't want to undermine our national security or that of our allies, and that includes South Korea and Japan in the region. We also need to engage with China and see what they think is going on as well.
Senator Inhofe is chairman of the Armed Services Committee right now, acting chairman, and we heard him in that piece of sound before the commercial break saying, we've got a tough president in office now, and that, he thinks, is what brought North Korea to the table. Do you think that the pressure from President Trump is part of the reason they're suddenly expressing this willingness to speak?
I do. And I think the administration deserves credit. Our declaratory policy, reminding North Korea if they start a fight with the United States, that will end badly for them. I think also the economic pressure that's been put on, the increasing economic pressure. There's a lot of diplomacy that goes behind getting that sort of pressure on North Korea, getting others to come along. I think they do deserve credit. The deterrence on the peninsula, some of the demonstrations of force, I think that's been helpful.
Well, the president tweeted about it this morning, said it might work, it might not, but
that's right.
We'll see what happens at any rate. Skepticism is a good plan. Peter Brookes from the Heritage Foundation. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, John.
New developments in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. The FBI agent tasked with the investigation did not follow up on news of a possible breach to the Clinton server. Our coverage continues on Outnumbered next hour.
Would you like to win $7,000 a week for life from Publishers Clearinghouse?